Hey everybody, I have two very special guests here with me today. I have Danielle and Kristen from Everyone is Gay, so stay tuned because we're about to talk about coming out and religion, and you don't want to miss it. So like I said, I have two very special guests from Everyone is Gay, Danielle and Kristen, and where can my viewers find you if they'd like to watch and read your stuff?
The internet?
The internet is a good
great
place. Yeah.
Totally.
EveryoneisGay.com specifically is a good place to find us.
And then we're on all the forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, etc. just as Everyone is Gay.
Yeah, and on YouTube we're EveryoneisGay.com. The .com is spelled out because someone took Everyone is Gay.
You're kidding.
No, it's just two children dancing. It's just one video of two children dancing.
We don't know what to do about it,
So we move on.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links to that below in the description, and also we'll push over to their channel at the end, so you don't want to miss that, so stay tuned. But today we're talking about coming out and religion. And I know I've heard from many of you that that's a concern of yours. It can be like an internal war. It can also be an actual external war where you're trying to talk to your pastor, your family, your friends about it. So what would you say they should keep in mind when they're going through this? I mean,
for me, I think that the first step is patience, and that's both patience with yourself and patience with, family or friends who are religious and who may disagree with who you are. It takes a long time. I came out to my mom when I was 17. She's super religious, and it took us like a decade of dialogue, of reading, of her asking me questions, of me being really angry, for us to get to a place that was much more comfortable. And I'm sure we'll go into some of those points in more detail in a minute, but definitely patience is key.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would just say too, I think we have a habit to, if you are a person of faith, to jump to, well, I can't have my faith anymore. And that's just not the case. I mean, we have a close personal friend, Ola Brody. You can follow him all over, and he's in seminary school, or maybe he just graduated.
He just graduated.
Yeah, graduated. And he has like so many beautiful and wonderful things to say about how he comes to understand religion and faith for himself as a gay man, and it's just like amazing, and the way that he writes about it is just so deep and beautiful. And so I think that one part of coming out to a religious family is like, oh, I have lost my faith, and that isn't always necessarily the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing that we also talk about is finding congregations who are welcoming and accepting.
and there's a lot of those.
Yes.
In my research that I put together for the workbook that'll be coming out soon, there are rabbis, there are pastors and preachers in all different sects and religions that are accepting and are themselves part of the LGBT community.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of times, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of times people automatically assume that they're mutually exclusive. I can only be this, and I can only be this, and I have to decide. Versus realizing that's just who you are, and who you are can be a faith-based person or not.
Right.
And that's completely your own choice as a human.
Yeah, and not putting yourself in a place where, because I think a lot of us try to still go to our old church or our old temple or wherever, and if you feel like you're not accepted there, it's really hard to find that deep connection to your faith, because that's always in the back of your mind, And if you start to date somebody, you feel like, ooh, can I bring them to the place where I worship? Or if I do, maybe I shouldn't be like sitting too close to them, and you really don't want to have those things happening when you're trying to just be, in a faith place, which is a really special place to be.
Yeah, totally. And as someone who does not have like a strong connection to any religion, I'm talking about myself, so I'm pointing to me.
That's also
me.
You, both of you.
But as someone who doesn't have like a strong connection to any specific religion, and I wouldn't call myself a person of faith, I have so much respect for those who do have that deep connection. And so I have the ability to dialogue with those people and not make them feel like, oh, one of us is wrong and one of us is right, and so that's all we're going to talk about here. It's so important to me to have that respect, and for people who do have such a strong belief, because I think it's really beautiful and important.
Yeah, and it's part of what makes them amazing people. It's like all part of our makeup, right? It's not right or wrong.
Right.
It's preferences, and it's what's important to them and part of who they are.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like specifically, I think for me, my journey was a lot easier for me to accept me and also know that I could have faith, but my relationship to my family was super tricky. My mom I already talked about, but my extended family is super religious as well, and we have ongoing conversations. And for me, a huge thing was being educated. I know it sounds kind of like odd because we're talking about faith, but knowing how to answer them when they would say like, the Bible says this, you know, and I had like tools where I could say like, actually, you know what's really interesting about that piece of the Bible is like this part of translation or this part where it says all these other things that we don't abide by. And there are some really incredible movies and books that you can read and offer to them too, if they're at a place where they're willing to kind of open up and read some things that I think really open people's eyes to different ideas and different concepts, because I think people are afraid.
And I think I can't say it enough that like we have to be open to having the conversation. It's not it's like we're just saying right and wrong. We can't come in being like, I know everything. You have to agree with me. It's a process for everybody. And the thing that I read over and over in the books I was just showing you is like, you have to be open to giving them the time to give you a response. There may be a reaction, but give them the time to digest the information, decide where they stand, and be open to having the dialogue be constant. Because they're still learning. Like a lot of the feedback that was in one of the books, and I've referred to it on my coming out video, if you're interested in what I'm referencing, about talking to pastors or preachers, and if they believe for or against, asking them why, and being open to talking about it and hearing why, and then giving your feedback and having a conversation, not a fight. We don't have to be aggressive. It's just part of coming to and realizing what's important and making it work.
And it's like this, there's like a middle space. I think that's what you're illustrating beautifully, is that if you're here and a family member is here, that there is this space in between. They don't have to come all the way to you. You don't have to go all the way to them. That, you know, for some families, it may mean that they respect you and that they, you know, will meet the person that you're with, or they will start calling you by your name or your pronouns. But maybe they still struggle with some things, and that's okay. Like you can still have a loving relationship and a respectful relationship without having to, you know, make them exactly like you are and believe exactly like you are.
Because we all believe differently in general in life, like whether it's politically, religiously, lifestyle wise. There's a ton of things that we can believe differently, but it's all about coming together. If the relationship's important, then it's worth working on to come to, you know, a middle ground.
Absolutely.
And also, I mean, I want to kind of go back to what you said about the first reaction versus waiting for the moment of talking about it or to continue to talk about it. Our book, this is a book for parents of gay kids, has a chapter on religion, and throughout the entire chapter, at no point do we say, you know, this is correct and this is wrong, or you should change your beliefs to accept your child, or we never say any of that. And as we say with coming out in any situation, that time is so important. Having patience with your parents or with your family members is so important, because nobody knows what they think right away. Nobody knows what they think until they've been given the space to be like, whoa, this challenges my beliefs and I have to struggle through that, but I'm okay with that. I want to go through this struggle because I want to be able to support you. So that struggle and that dialogue is just so important.
I had a conversation, Danielle and I were just away at this thing called A Camp, and I had a really amazing conversation with somebody who was struggling with their parents and faith, and what they said to me was, I need more things for my parents to read who are from people who come from a deep faith place, because I think a lot of times, like if your family is super religious, they're like, well, this person doesn't understand, right? Like, Danielle, you can't write a thing about faith because, right? And they want like a priest or a pastor. And so we have Broderick, which Danielle mentioned, and we're going to start growing that on the Parents Project, which is the website that goes along with the book. But I think finding that, looking online and finding people who are faith-based, Believe Out Loud, isn't that the name of the organization? Yeah, we've done some work with them, and they have really great pieces that are from the religious perspective. So it's less threatening to family members and things like that.
And it may use the verbiage they're used to, and totally get on board with it. And I'll put all the links that we're talking about below, so if you're interested, you can find more information, because the more we share, the better we all are.
Totally.
Thank you so much for being on and just having an honest discussion about this, and hopefully we'll do more in the future.
Thank you for having us.
And click here to go over and watch the video that we did on their channel, because you don't want to miss that either, because it's just as awesome. And click here to subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.